In today's session, we will talk on sociolinguistics. But before we actually begin with sociolinguistics, let us find out in which section of anthropology does language belongs to. Broadly speaking, anthropology is a study of mankind, and one of its sections is studying the cultural aspect. When talking about cultural aspect, we come to one of the major sections, that is language. Therefore, the scientific study of language, that is linguistics, becomes one of an important branch of cultural anthropology. Now, what is sociolinguistics? Let's talk about that. Sociolinguistics is a field that studies a relation between language and society, between the uses of language and social structures in which the users of language live. It studies the effect of any and all aspects of society, including cultural norms, expectations, and context on the way language is used. It is a field of study which assumes that human society is made up of many related patterns and behavior, some of which are properly or clearly linguistics. Sociolinguistics can be broadly defined as that branch of linguistics which studies those properties of language which must be explained in social terms. Social explanation within linguistics fall within two categories. First, it involves looking at large-scale social patterning of variation and change. This large-scale study is sometimes called correlational sociolinguistics, variation studies, modern urban dialectology, or sociolinguistics proper. The second way in which language is socially explained looks at small-scale speech situations. Small-scale situational study is called pragmatics, conversational analysis, the ethnography of communication, discourse analysis, social semiotics, etc. Now, let us find out how sociolinguistics originated. Sociolinguistics as an academic discipline only developed within the last 50 years. Even though an interest in the social aspects of language has been there for long, formal study has been done very recently. The word sociolinguistics was apparently already coined in 1939 in the title of an article by Thomas C. Hodgson, Sociolinguistics in India, in Man in India. When sociolinguistics became popularized as a field of study in the late 1960s, there were two labels. First, sociolinguistics, and second, sociology of language, for the same phenomenon, the study of the intersection and interaction of language and society, and these two terms were used interchangeably. Language is the core of human culture. Anthropologists have always put it at the center of their agenda, so to have many linguists. The amalgam of the two disciplines, anthropological linguistics, aims to document and examine how language mirrors social structure and culture-specific thought patterns. Anthropological linguistics is that subfield of linguistics which is concerned with the place of language in its wider social and cultural context, its role in forging and sustaining cultural practices and social structures. As such, it may be seen to overlap with another subfield with similar domain called sociolinguistics. The relationship between language and culture is deeply rooted. Language is used to maintain and convey culture and cultural ties. The term culture is used differently by different anthropologists. All definitions of culture agree that language is an important part of culture. Culture is a complex entity which comprises a set of symbolic systems including knowledge, norms, values, beliefs, language, art and customs, as well as habits and skills learned by individuals as members of a given society. The SAPIR-WHORF hypothesis has changed the way many people look at the relationship between language, thought, and cultural perception of reality. The SAPIR-WHORF hypothesis has strong roots in linguistic relativity and determinism of von Humboldt. According to Humboldt, languages differ from one another. Thought and language are inseparable, and therefore each speech community embodies a distinct worldview. Benjamin WHORF extended this doctrine of linguistic determinism to describe the roles of language and thought in human development. As SAPIR-WHORF argues, different thoughts are brought about by the use of different forms of language. One is limited by the language used to express one's ideas. Different languages will create different limitations. Therefore, people who share a culture but speak different languages will have different worldviews. The WHORFian hypothesis can therefore be summarized as follows. Firstly, different languages utilize different semantic representation systems which are informationally non-equivalent, at least in the sense that they employ different lexical concepts. Secondly, semantic representations determine aspects of conceptual representations. Thirdly, users of different languages utilize different conceptual representations. Linguists and anthropologists have been concerned with the SAPIR-WHORF hypothesis and the implications that surround the claim made by SAPIR in 1928 and continue to look for ways to prove or disprove the idea that language directly influences the way reality is perceived. The term speech community is widely used by sociolinguists to refer to a community based on language. All the activities of man are born out of close adjustments among individuals, which we call society, and these adjustments in turn is based upon language. The speech community, therefore, is the most important of social group. Speech communities differ greatly in size. The most important differences of speech communities are due to differences in the density of communication. The main types of speech in a complex speech community can be roughly divided into 5 groups. First, literary standard. This is used in the most formal discourse and in writing. Second, colloquial standard. It is a speech of the privileged class. Third, provincial standard. It is very close to colloquial standard but differs slightly from province to province. In the US, it is used by middle-class sections of the society. Fourth is a substandard. It is spoken in European countries by the lower middle class and in US by almost everyone except the privileged and middle-class people, and differs topographically without intense local difference. Fifth is a local dialect. It is spoken by the least privileged class. In Switzerland, it is also used as a domestic language by other classes. It differs from village to village. The term diglossia was introduced first into English language literature by Charles Ferguson. In places like Greece, Arabic-speaking world, German-speaking Switzerland, and the islands of Haiti, there are 2 distinct varieties of language. The 2 varieties are called high and low, or standard and vernacular. Diglossia is a particular form of language standardization in which 2 languages exist side by side and both the distinct varieties are assigned social functions. Though the functions of the 2 varieties varies from community to community, the high varieties is used for sermons, political speeches, university lectures, etc. And the low variety is used among family, friends, etc. Next, we talk about another variety of speech, pidgin. There is yet another way in which different varieties may be mixed with each other by a process in which a variety is formed out of 2 existing ones. This process of variety synthesis takes a number of different forms. By far, the most important manifestation is the process called pidgindization, where pidgin languages are created. This variety is created specially for practical and immediate purposes to communicate between members of different communities which would not have a common language. A pidgin is a new language which develops in situations where speakers of different languages need to communicate but do not share a common language. Once a stable pidgin has emerged, it is generally learned as a second language and used for communication among people who speak different languages. Example is Nigerian Pidgin. Now, we take up another speech variety, Creole. A pidgin which has acquired native speaker is called Creole language or Creole. When children start learning a pidgin as their first language and it becomes the mother tongue of a community, it is called a Creole. Like a pidgin, a Creole is a distinct language which has taken most of its vocabulary from another language, the lexifier, but has its own unique grammatical rules. Examples are Jamaican Creole and Hawaiian Creole English. The only difference between Creole and other languages lies in its origin. Creole is acquired through a process called creolization and gradually loses its identity through decreolization. The first topic is bilingualism. The concept of bilingualism has become wider since the beginning of the century. Bilingualism was long regarded as an equal mastery of two languages. Bloomfield considered bilingualism as a native-like control of the two languages, and this was again broadened by Hogan, who says that bilingualism is the ability to produce complete, meaningful utterances in the other language. Bilingualism refers to a state of a linguistic community in which two languages are in contact, with the results that two codes can be used in the same interaction. It is considered as the alternate use of two or more languages by the same individual. The first type is the coordinate bilingualism. A coordinate bilingual acquires the two languages in different contexts, for example, at home and at school. So the words of the two languages belong to separate and independent systems. In coordinate bilingualism, the person learns the language in separate environments, and the words of the two languages are kept separate, with each word having its own specific meaning. An example would be a person whose first language is English and then learns French in school. Second type is compound bilingual. A compound bilingual is an individual who learns two languages in the same environment so that he or she acquires one notion with two verbal expressions. In compound bilingualism, the person learns the two languages in the same context where they are used concurrently and there is fused representation of the languages in the brain. For the compound bilingual, the languages are interdependent, whereas for coordinate bilingual, they are independent. There is another type of bilingualism, which is a subtype of coordinate bilingualism. In a subcoordinate bilingualism, one language dominates. Code switching is the inevitable consequence of bilingualism. A person who speaks more than one language tends to choose between the languages according to the circumstances. According to Gumpers, code switching is a juxtaposition within the same speech exchange of passages belonging to two different grammatical systems or subsystems. In multilingual society, different varieties are used for different purposes. The choice of variety is controlled by social rules. One variety is used at home and another for wider community. In code switching, the point at which the languages change corresponds to a point where the situation changes, either on its own or precisely because the language changes. Next is code mixing. Code mixing is another example of how different varieties get mixed together. This happens when a fluent bilingual talking to another fluent bilingual changes language without any change at all in the situation. The purpose of code mixing seems to symbolize a somewhat ambiguous situation for which neither language on its own would be quite right. To get the right effect, the speakers balance the two languages against each other. A few words of one language, then a few words of the other, then back to first for a few more words, and so on. The changes generally takes place more or less randomly as far as subject matter is concerned. Many disciplines are concerned with aspects of society. Disciplines such as sociology, ethnology, ethnography, social and cultural anthropology studies social life. Sociolinguistics, the recent arrival on the scene of social sciences, is an outcome of approaches to language that have gradually evolved in linguistics and all the sciences of society. Sociolinguistics is concerned with a close relationship between language and society. Definition of language and society are not independent. The definition of language would include in it a reference to society.